tam chena tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namaho Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namaste Saraswati Te Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunya Paschatya Deshadani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare And again, everyone. Hare. Krishna, Hare and again, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Gaur Hare Hariva, Hariva, Hare Ram, Hare Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Sri Guru Namah Sri Caitanya Manvistam Sakitam Devate Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapananja Vansakapat Kripasya Kripasindhi Mahaprabhu is now in Mathura. It doesn't describe, Chaitanya Caritamrta doesn't describe how long it took him to walk from Jagannath Puri to Mathura through Benares. Anyone has made that journey by foot? No, no way. And he's gone through the Jarikhanda forest, and he was exemplifying how to go on how to journey to Vrindavan, both on a yatra and also, and by his example, first of all, he was internally absorbed. That doesn't mean that he was unaware of it or didn't deal practically with it, but his main absorption was internal, and that internal fire of his relationship with Krishna, because he was in the mood with Krishna himself, Radha Krishna Nayana. His main absorption, his main consciousness was focused on Krishna, and he was seeing everything, including Vrindavan, through that lens of Krishna and attaining Krishna's service in Vrindavan. It is said that, or it will be said that just the mere mention of the word Vrindavan at other times when Mahaprabhu wasn't in Vrindavan would cause him to be completely ecstatic. And there he was going to Vrindavan. The anticipation of going to Vrindavan caused him to see everything in relationship to Vrindavan. So the mountains were what? The mountains, you know, those big things that like, what did he see though? You weren't here, but you know. He saw them as Giriraj Govardhan, and the rivers he saw as the Yamuna. And he saw everything in relationship to Krishna. He lived very, very simply as he traveled on, and it was based on his internal absorption. And every time they passed the way through the forest, or as they got closer after Benares, every time he saw the Yamuna, he, without thinking, he would jump in and be ecstatic by touching the same waters that Krishna had touched so many thousands of years ago. And then when he arrived in Benares, he was confronted with the Mayavad philosophy spoken by Prakasandala Saraswati through the eyes of a Maharashtrian Brahmana, through the ears and mouth of the Maharashtrian Brahmana. And Mahaprabhu clearly said that they're offenders. And he gave the specific example why they're offenders is because they see everything as Maya. They don't see Krishna even as composed of Satchidananda Vigraha. They don't see the holy names as spiritual. They don't see the deity as spiritual. They don't see devotional service as spiritual. So Srila Jiva Goswami takes great, I'd almost say pains, but he in Krishna Sandarbha, he shows that all these things, everything connected to Krishna in the spiritual world, or anything really connected to Krishna, is not material, it is spiritual. And the Mayavad philosophy is exactly the opposite, that everything other than undifferentiated oneness is material, contaminated by material consciousness. So Mahaprabhu said that they're offenders, the Mayavadis are offenders. And Prakasananda Saraswati said, don't associate with Mahaprabhu. He's just a sentimentalist. He's chanting, dancing. He's some type of a hypnotist, jaduwala, magician. Don't associate with him. Just study Vedanta and meditate. And then you will see everything is one, which is not very different from seeing everything as nothing. And if you see everything as nothing, there's not any difference practically between being alive or being dead. Because according to the materialists, when you're dead, there's no consciousness. So that's what the Sunyavadis say also. So in any case, Mahaprabhu said that they're offenders. And then he walked onward. He explained because they didn't see the holy names as Krishna, specifically this, they were aparadhis, offenders. So we can say, look at those Mayavadis, they're offenders, But then I look at the Bhurijana and I see that, am I conscious that the holy name is Krishna? Do I respect the holy names in that way? So it's important to, when we see the instructions that are given, it's important not to think they are meant for someone else. So Mahaprabhu again is showing the method of really getting to Vrindavan and being in Vrindavan. And in today's class, we're going to discuss his entry. We already discussed in last week's class his entry into Vrindavan, going to the Janmastan Keshavji temple, and he's seeing him in ecstasy. Finally, he's in Mathura Mandala. He's in this holy land, finally, after walking for months perhaps. And there he is in that anticipation. I'm going to be there. I'll be in Vrindavan. I'm soon going to be in Vrindavan. And then he's actually there. And he's already internally absorbed completely in seeing everything in relationship to Vrindavan. And then he's there in Mathura. And he dances and chants in front of the deities. And no one has ever seen anything like that before. That degree of internal absorption in love for Krishna. And then one Brahmana comes, and he dances and chants with Mahaprabhu. And then they get everyone to dance and chant, everyone in the temple. And then later Mahaprabhu takes him inside and says, where did you learn this from? How has ecstasy overcome you in this way? Because he knew something. Mahaprabhu knew, and he didn't say what it was, but it was confirmed by what the Mathura Brahmana said. He said, I once, years ago, and this was 2 generations from Madhavendra Puri, because from Madhavendra Puri there was Ishwar Puri, and now Mahaprabhu was a young sannyasi, was there. So years ago, Madhavendra Puri, while he was wandering Brahmate, because he would continuously wander, and he came to Vrindavan. And when he came to my house. And I was able to feed him there. He gave me initiation. So when Mahaprabhu heard that, he knew already that no one can have ecstatic love for Krishna in this world. That type of ecstatic love that causes the soul to dance in ecstasy. No one can have that without having some touch with Madhavendra Puri. So the Brahmana confirmed that. Mahaprabhu paid his obeisances. And then the Brahmana, seeing this incredible sannyasi who was effulgent, beautiful, and ecstatic, pay his obeisances. He felt terrible. He felt embarrassed, so he paid his, and they were paying obeisances. And then finally, the Brahmin said, because it must have been sometime around lunchtime, he said, I'll give some food to Balabhadra Bhattacharya, your Brahmin assistant, because he was from a Sanodya Brahmin community, this Brahmana, and they're not considered suitable because the people who they serve are addicted to intoxication. The people who they advise are addicted to intoxication, etc. That they weren't, and the Brahmins would associate with them, so they weren't considered suitable to offer food to a sannyasi who has to keep his consciousness so clean. He can't allow any contaminations to enter his consciousness because it would mean doom for sannyas ashram, and they were so strict about this, and the society was so strict. So no materialism, no selfish thoughts, just full dependence on Krishna. That was the Ham Trishyami Dhiratya Param. We'll cross over the ocean of material existence by following the footsteps of the great acharyas of the past who took shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna of Murari. So when he offered Mahaprabhu that I'll give food, the Brahmana offered Mahaprabhu, I'll give food to Balabhadra, vegetables or whatever, and rice, so he can cook for you. Mahaprabhu said, no. Madhavendra Puri accepted your food. And his example speaks louder, is more authoritative than any scriptures or cultural prohibitions or injunctions. We follow that, his example. Now, that's what we're up to. And now, please understand that something that I've just understood by reading this amazing book, I would say miraculous book, is that Mahaprabhu has set the example already for how to go on pilgrimage, how to use one's life to attain the goal of life, which isn't liberation, it's not sense gratification, it's not cultural, it's love for Krishna, prema paramato mahan. That is the goal. So he set the example. And now that point is that we should follow that example. He's not going to say everyone should follow my example, because that wouldn't be very polite. But he's saying that the truth rests in the hearts of the devotees. And it is astounding, and I'll bring up the point and I'll tell you what I think is astounding in a few moments. So he's set the example on how to get to Vrindavan, the methodology, the workings of the mind, the consciousness, and how bright does that burning have to be to actually see in that way. The flames of one's desire to actually attain this most subtle and amazing goal, this prema bhakti, which is what Mahaprabhu came to give, has to be burning so brightly to see like that. Otherwise, imitation, trying without the fire burning, it will cause us great humiliation only, which isn't so bad, because humility often follows humiliation. And humility is the counterpoint to love for Krishna, prema bhakti. So we're at the point where this topic is going to be discussed, about where do religious principles actually reside. Because when we're aware of this point, we will keep our consciousness open when examining the life of Mahaprabhu, of Prabhupada, and the great devotees. So he's going to enter Vrindavan now, Mahaprabhu. As soon as this episode is over and this philosophical point is discussed, he's going to enter Vrindavan. And we should also watch the mood in which he enters, because that is the mood that we won't be able to follow, but it is so amazing. We won't be able to follow it, but we should know that this is what is possible. Maybe not for us in this life, but this is what it's like when a greatest of souls is in Vrindavan. The whole land reciprocates. The internal absorption is so profound, so deep, so attractive, that it attracts all of Braj to reciprocate. In fact, Prabhupada even said, or it says in Caitanya Caritamrta, that one drop of prema bhakti is sufficient. One drop, eka bindu, is sufficient to drown the whole world. And we should understand, if we're at all conscious of what the world is like, we should understand that the world does need some drowning, something other than complete materialism, because the complete materialism of the world is heading towards practically such destruction, because that kind of passion leads to ignorance, and ignorance leads to deeper ignorance. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, so when the Brahmana the Mathura Brahmana, who was Sanodya, he asked Balabhadra Bhattacharya to cook Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lunch. At that time, the Lord, smiling, he spoke as follows. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Madhavendra Puri has already taken lunch at your place. Therefore, you may cook and give me the food. That is my instruction. Amora Shiksha, Shika. That is my instruction. I want you to do this. It is against the social principles. It is against the culture. It is against what's done in this holy city of Mathura. And this is what I want you to do. And then he quotes, Yada yada hi dhamasya. Now he says, Yad yad acharati shreshtas tad tadeva tiro jana sayat pramanam kurute. This is the praman. This is the authoritative scriptures. What is Lokas tadanavata? This is what people should follow. So this is famous Bhagavad Gita verse. Whatever actions a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by his exemplary acts, all the world pursues. I remember when I was growing up many years ago, there was a presidential election, and John F. Kennedy, who was somehow very popular in India, he was president. And up to that time, everyone, when they were being inaugurated as the president, they wore these hats, these top hats, these funny hats like this. So John Kennedy, he didn't wear any hat at the inauguration. Did you know that? And after that, the whole hat industry fell apart in the United States. Especially those kind of hats. So whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So when the leaders are setting such terrible examples, the world follows terrible examples because that's what they want anyway, because the common people want to just be passionate in ignorance. But when he sets exalted examples, it gives them something to strive for. So the leadership, and we were speaking about this yesterday, that even in any old culture, the kings had such a responsibility to live according to Dharma, to live according to the proper conduct. And we read about this also in the Bhagavatam, that even when the rainfall wasn't proper, it would be the king who was blamed. So in the old Egyptian culture, when the rivers were running dry and there wasn't enough rain, and people were coming from foreign countries to disturb foreign areas of the world, to disturb them, marauding and raiding them, they said this is because the king isn't following Dharma. So what a responsibility there is to lead. It's not only to do something with the economy, which is what the people want, but it's to set the example that if everyone would follow, that the world would be a better place. So continuing, so Mahaprabhu even quotes Yad Yada Charati Shrestha, whatever the Shreshtas, the leaders do, everyone follows, the ordinary people follow. So the Brahmin belonged to the Sanodiya Brahmana community, and a sannyasi does not accept food from such a Brahmana. So Prabhupada explains why, and we spoke about these things. And although the Brahmana belonged to the Sanodiya community, Srila Madhavendra Puri had seen that he behaved like a Vaishnava and had therefore accepted him as his disciple. The food he had cooked had also been accepted by Madhavendra Puri. So the vision of an exalted soul like Madhavendra Puri, he understands what the rules and regulations and the proper cultural, what are the attitudes, he understands what they're trying to achieve. And it's to regulate society, because society needs regulation. It needs a balance between regulation and freedom. And if someone is too much absorbed on the freedom side, then things fall apart. If someone's too much absorbed on the regulating everything part, then things fall apart and people feel oppressed. So this delicate balance always has to be there. So the person who has spiritual vision understands the purpose of society, understands the purpose of culture. He understands the principles behind the regulation of the people. And therefore, he can adjust things in his own attitude and also with people who follow him. He can adjust things so that the actual purpose is achieved. Because there's such a tendency for society to get lost, especially in Kali Yuga. So therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu willingly requested food from the Brahmana, and the Brahmana, feeling natural humility, he began to speak as follows. It is a great fortune for me to offer you food. So this is something that especially in the Vedic culture, especially in the Vaishnava culture, but it's especially obviously seen that it's seen continuously that this is fortune, considered fortune. It is not something that brings material wealth, immediate satisfaction that makes one feel fortunate. It is the process of giving. And the most essential or basic necessity for human beings is food. And when you give people food and satisfy people in that way, that brings oneself feeling of taking birth in oneself as a feeling of being fortunate. And that's just the opposite of the way that the world works. Everything for me. And everything for me doesn't bring happiness to me. And what happens when everyone is selfish and thinking the problem is that I'm not getting enough for me, what happens is one feels less satisfied, not more satisfied. And then one thinks in this mood that the problem is that I didn't get enough for me. So he gets more selfish, and that's less satisfying. So more and more selfishness and less satisfaction. So this is culture to engender this. So he said, the Brahmin said, it is my great fortune to me offer you, for what to speak of an exalted person. You are the Supreme Lord. What to speak of offering food to the Supreme Lord, which is why Krishna invests himself in the form of a Archa Vigraha, Archa Murti. He himself comes as a deity to accept the offerings that the devotees make out of their desire to please him, out of their desire to think it is my great fortune. It is my great fortune to have the opportunity to feed you. Because you are the Supreme Lord, and being in the transcendental position, you are not restricted in any way. In other words, you don't have to follow, you're the Supreme. You don't have to follow the rules and regulations. But everyone's not going to think of you as the Supreme. And he says, you can do whatever you want, but Murkha Lokya Karir Bheka Toma Nindana, foolish people, Murk, they're going to criticize you. And part of that criticism of you will be criticism of me for feeding you, because I'm supposed to know, and I did know that and you overrode over your opinion was Your desire was stronger, but they'll criticize you, they'll criticize me, but I shall not tolerate the words of such mischievous people. And here he was, a low class, sort of we could say a lower class, Sanodaya Brahmana, and he was strong. I'm not going to tolerate if people criticize you. Or when people criticize you, I will not tolerate it. Even if they're in a position in society stronger than me, higher than me, I will not tolerate it. So Prabhupada speaks about this point. Is this his arrogance? Or is this his humility born out of his surrender to the Supreme Lord? So Prabhupada says, a pure devotee has the power to challenge, and he's speaking about even himself. There's some autobiography in here. A pure devotee has the power to challenge such high caste people. And his brave statements are not to be considered proud or puffed up. On the contrary, he is to be considered straightforward. Such a person does not like to flatter high-class brahmanas who belong to the non-Vaishnava community. So Prabhupada was quite famous for that. And sometimes he would even call them rascals. And when the devotees hear that he would call them rascals, they get so much happiness. Because he would do it without envy, without pride. Oh, what does he want? You will surrender, I know. And then Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he replied to him saying, I won't tolerate it. He said, the Vedas, the Puranas, the mature Brahmana said, I won't tolerate it if they criticize you. And he said, the Vedas, Mahaprabhu replied, the Vedas, Puranas, and great learned sages are not always in agreement with one another. Consequently, there are different religious principles. So here is a very interesting point. And then this is going to lead to the next verse, which has an extremely long purport. So there are the Vedas and Puranas and great learned sages are not always in agreement with one another. Consequently, there are different religious principles. So, so Prabhupada talks about this in his purport, and he really talks about it in the next purport. But please listen. Why? Because one wonders why there are so many different religions. And it's such an interesting point, more than interesting, because say if everyone is living in the same place, say even if they're living in the middle of the jungle, and they have one tribe, and when you look at the anthropology of this, or the study of the different cultures, one learns that all religions, all tribes, all groups, they have a word for outsiders. Now, in Christianity, the outsiders, non-believers, are called heathens. In the Islamic religions, what are they called? Kafir. It's not a polite thing to call someone kafir. And of course, in Hinduism, there's mlechas and yavanas. In the Jewish religion, they're called Gentiles, which doesn't mean gentle. But really, basically, what it means, and even in the tribes, these African tribes, they also have the same thing. It's not unique to the religions. And basically, it says that we are humans. And everyone not in our tribe, they're not human beings. Now that's fine if you're living in the jungle and you don't have to contact any other tribes or any other groups of people. But soon as the different groups you have to intermix with each other, what to speak of through the internet, And everyone's saying, well, you're not human beings. No, you're not human beings. No, you're not human beings because you don't follow this rule. And this, there's so many different opinions about what is right and what's wrong. And so, anyway, we'll get into this and speak about it a little more, but let's hear what Mahaprabhu has said, that even the Vedas and Puranas, so we can say, well, and we go by what the Shastra says. This is the deciding factor. But here, Mahaprabhu was saying that they don't agree with each other. So what are we going to do then? Who's right? Consequently, there are different religious principles. So different people, according to their consciousness, according to their desires, they're going to accept different shastras even, what to speak of different principles. And they're all going to say, well, Shastra says, my scripture says. And when you're in India, everyone sort of, at least it used to be like that, everyone sort of agreed that the Vedic principles were the authority. Now, of course, it's scientific principles make people who talk in that way feel very much like this old-fashioned sentimentalist or something like that. And then just imagine what Prabhupada had to confront when he left India and he had to deal with people, and his whole preaching field was people who never even heard of Krishna, never even heard of the Bhagavad Gita, practically speaking, never even heard of the Vedic literatures, never even heard of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Shankaracharya. Of course, there were some people who had heard of them, but all the, what we would call philosophically presuppositions, the things that we accept as true, just accept them as true in one culture, they don't exist in every culture. So therefore, as most of you having been born in India, it's quite a shock to come to a Western country, and there's this whole different systems of rules and everything. So Prabhupada came with this jewel of a message of prema bhakti into a completely foreign land, a foreign culture that didn't have any of the principles and faith that everyone in India more or less naturally has. They didn't know what a sadhu was. They didn't know what they had. In fact, the Judeo-Christian cultures, they're against deity worship. And the scientific culture, scientific methodology and training is so dominant in the West, and of course nowadays in India too, that you don't listen to authority. You have to go better, you have to evolve past the current authorities. So what a rocky, deserty land Prabhupada landed in, and this is what preaching is like in the West. It's completely different. So anyway, Prabhupada says in his purport, the first question is, what is the cause for these what is real religion then? Unless one comes to the absolute truth, there's no possibility of agreement on anything, practically speaking. And therefore in Kali Yuga, it's so hard to cooperate with anyone over a period of time, even in marriage, in families. Years ago when we first came to Vrindavan even, how many of you have come from joint families? Yeah. How many of those joint families do you think will exist in a few generations? No one can get along nowadays. This is Kali Yuga. Everyone's false ego and feeling of entitlement is just too big. In South America, do they have? Oh, you don't know. Asking the wrong person. There were when we first got to Vrindavan, in Loy Bazaar, there was Ganga Prasad. They were the most famous and popular cloth merchants where everyone would go when they wanted dhotis and saris and whatever. And so he had, I don't know how many brothers, or sons, 3 or 4 or something. So he set it up. And he was a devotee, such a devotee in Vrindavan. I asked him, I heard that he never left Vrindavan at all, so even to go to Mathura. So I asked him, do you ever not leave Vrindavan? He was elderly at that time. Even to go to Mathura? You don't even go to Mathura? And he replied, why should I go to Kamsa's place? So there's such a mood, such a sentiment. So they had children, and they were extremely wealthy, even by that time. And so 4 children, and they had 1 shop. And now, I guess it's quite a while. It's 50 years later that each one of those brothers or sons, they have their own business. They couldn't get along. They each have different shops. I don't know if they're called Ganga Prasad 1, Ganga Prasad 2. I don't know what they're called, but huh? Is that what they're called?
Ganga and Yamuna, the brothers.
Yeah.
Separated.
And no one, just the way it is nowadays. This is Kali Yuga. No one can get along, or very rarely. And whether, even if they can, because it takes compromise. No one can have their way all the time, and everyone in Kali Yuga wants to have their way all the time. So what is the point of agreement then? Because everyone is self-centered. So agreement means everyone should cooperate with me. But unless one comes to the absolute truth, there's no possibility of agreement. So the agreement amongst devotees is supposed to be, what will we do? How should I act that will be pleasing to Krishna? I may like this, I may like that, but how I should act is determined by what's pleasing to Krishna. And what I want is less important. And I know that if I get what I want, it's not going to make me satisfied anyway. So if I please Krishna, I'll be satisfied. It's a completely different mood, born of a different culture. So unless one comes to the absolute truth, there's no possibility of agreement. Nasarishyasyimatam nabhinam. It is said that a great learned scholar or sage cannot be exalted. This verse will be described next. Unless he agrees with other scholars and sages. So there's no, in the academic, intellectual world, there is no becoming prominent unless you establish your own theory. And there was a very famous Western scientist, Newton. He said, if I have seen further than anyone else, it is because, you know what? You know?
Standing on the shoulders.
Because I have stood on the shoulders of giants. So even though he was being humble in a sense, but that's not how devotees think, that we stand on the shoulders or the heads of the great acharyas to arise. It's just a different way of thinking. So on the material platform, there is no possibility of agreement. There are different kinds of religious systems because they're on the material platform, Prabhupada is saying. But the absolute truth is one. And when one is situated in the absolute truth, there is no disagreement because one sees things in the perspective of the purpose of the principles, of the religions, of the processes. One understands the purpose of them. So one has to be on that platform, to be on the platform of agreement. On that absolute platform, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable. So what does that mean? That means what's on that platform, seeing things from the perspective of the Absolute, he's worshipable. And that means that when you're not on that platform, you can't actually worship the Absolute Truth with a full heart, Krishna, God. On that absolute platform, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable. Otherwise, it's always me who's in the center and worshipable. That's false ego. That's the platform of Maya. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktimam abhijananti yachasmi tatvata. On the absolute platform, the worshipable deity is one, and the process of worship is also one. That is, what is that process of worship? It's bhakti, it's devotion. It's so obvious that this is the point of it all. And yet, when you put all the different groups together in one room, everyone will think theirs is the best. So when Prabhupada says, on the absolute platform, the worshipable deity is one, and the process of worship is also one, that process is bhakti. Who will agree to that even? They'll think, oh, that's just your sectarian. And Prabhupada he will mention that later. People will think this is sectarian. This is just the opinion of one of the many groups, that ours is the best. But it actually isn't. Because there is one Supreme Absolute Truth. He's realized in different ways. And all the paths are meant to get to him. And the process that reveals, where he reveals himself, is the process of bhakti. So that is it's actually quite non-sectarian, while respecting all the others on the path, on the yoga ladders at maybe different rungs, even though others will see this as sectarian, just another sectarian point, but it actually isn't. But Prabhupada continues. I mean, it's very confronting. There are many different religions throughout the world because they are not all on the absolute platform of devotional service. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadhamam pratyajam mamekam sharanam braja. The word ekam means one, Krishna. On this platform, there are no different religious systems. According to Srimad-Bhagavatam, Dharma projita Caitanya. On the material platform, religious systems are different. Srimad-Bhagavatam describes them from the very beginning as Dharma Kaitava, cheating religion. None of these religions is actually genuine. So it's very, very confronting and very heavy. Because, and I've seen this, is that the religions of the world, generally they're interested in either karma, enjoyment, or moksha, freedom from suffering. So if my desire in performing religious activities is to enjoy, who is the center? Me. And if my desire in performing religious activities to get free from material suffering, who is the center? It's me. So bhakti is meant, and true religion is meant to get me out of the center, to put Krishna in the center. And his pleasure is my goal, the goal of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the deepest practitioners of any religion I've seen, the deepest practitioners of any religion have this understanding, that it's not about me. It's about Krishna. Of course, they might not say Krishna, but it's about God or the Supreme Lord in one language or another. So why is this confronting? It's because because I have so much selfishness in me, and so much of my thinking is about how if I please Krishna, then I'll get this and this and that. But then what happens when Krishna is so kind? He gives you a medicine that tastes bitter. And then how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the difficulties of life? I remember years ago, there was a great tsunami, an earthquake in the sea, and there was a tsunami, and it hit Chennai, I remember that, and especially it hit Indonesia, and 100,000 people in Indonesia were killed. Now this is no laughing matter, but so many religious people became atheists when that happened. So many religious people, because they could think, how could God do that? But when I heard that, I couldn't understand, but what happened? Don't they understand that there were 100,000 people killed there, but you're going to get angry at God for that? But what happens in 100 years from now when 8 billion people who are living in the world today, they're all dead? Why not get angry at him for that? Because we have the wrong idea about the material world even. The material world is a good place for learning a lesson, and that is that the emptiness in the heart can only be filled when our relationship with Krishna is established. It can't be filled by anything else. So it sounds sectarian. It can sound sectarian. It can sound, yes, we're right. But it isn't. It's very, very extremely deep. Are we deep enough to digest the points here? And to say that every other religion that doesn't have meaning, that doesn't have the goal of pleasing the Supreme Lord, that's cheating. It's cheating. What does that mean in baby language? Okay. The genuine, so he says this is cheating religion, according to Srimad-Bhagavatam, Dharma Project Caritamrta. On the material platform, religious systems are different. Srimad-Bhagavatam describes that from the very beginning as Dharma Kaitava, cheating religions. None of these religions is actually genuine. The genuine religious system is that which enables one to become a lover of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the goal. And that is what defines true religion. And then he quotes Savai Pamsam, Paradharmo Yato Bhaktir Hoksaje, Ahayitakiya Patiyata Yayatmasu Prasidati. So if this hits me, when I'm reading how bhakti is the religion, and it's like if India is playing cricket against Pakistan, and India wins, everyone thinks they won. So when our team Krishna Consciousness, Bhakti wins, we're the best we can think. But we should take this inside. I was once in Chandni Chowk in Delhi, and I was getting glasses or something like that many, many years ago. And I heard this, every once in a while I'd hear this roaring from all the people. The whole part of the city seemed to be cheering, and then quiet. And then 4 minutes later, cheering. And I said, what's going on? He said, India's playing Pakistan in cricket, and we are winning. So it's not like that, like Krishna Consciousness is the best. Haribol! It's not like that. This is meant to understand what's inside me too. especially that. And unless we understand what the goal is, what knowledge is, this is Sambandha Gyan. Unless we understand what true knowledge is, we won't take to the process. And if we don't understand the methodologies of the process, we won't take it to it properly. And if we understand this, and we understand what purity really means, then naturally we will become humble. So Savaipam Sam Parodamo Yatya Bhakti Hote Haitikiya Patiyata Yatma Supasidati. The supreme occupation for all humans is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. That's what religion is about. That is what Dharma is. Such devotional service must be unmotivated. That means motivated only by the desire to please Krishna. And uninterrupted means continuous, in order to completely satisfy the self. And this will lead to love. On this platform, and this is almost the end of this purport, on this platform, this absolute platform, there is nothing but the service of the Lord. When a person has no ulterior motive, that means no motive other than to please Krishna, there's certainly oneness and agreement of principles. Since everyone has a different body and mind, different types of religions are needed. But when one is situated on the spiritual platform, there are no bodily or mental differences. Consequently, on the absolute platform, there is oneness in religion. What do you think about this? Oh, you have to think about it first. What do you think about this? Oh, and then the next verse is, a devotee's behavior establishes the true purpose of religious principles. And the behavior of Madhavendra Puri Goswami is the essence of religious principles. So there's Shastra, but the Shastras, they often disagree with each other. So what's going to establish religion is the behavior of a devotee who is most exalted. That is the manifestation of in the external world of the internal realization of the absolute truth of Krishna and devotion. So what do you think of all this? Yes?
Well, just on that last point, that's quite interesting. Even, I guess, with Christianity and how Jesus Christ, through his example, created a religion, but it was based on his love for God. And that created such a movement of people wanting to aspire to follow in that footsteps, although there's of course differences in opinions in that practice, but still that concept of a pure devotee.
This power that he's ready to give up everything to please Krishna.
And even how scripture is more or less the stories of devotees. It's one and the same almost.
And if you read the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, that's what you're getting. These are the highest kind of devotees. And you can look at it as pastimes and cute stories. But if you look at it more deeply, what you're seeing is how the pure souls who love Krishna, love God, love the absolute truth, how they deal with him and how he reciprocates with them. That's what's going on. And it's the most astounding thing, because it appears to be like the material world, but rather the material world is like the spiritual world. It's a reflection of it. And therefore we can't find the happiness we're looking for in the material world, because it's a reflection. Yes. So the perfection of that is Goloka Vrindavan. And Mahaprabhu's absorption in that mood gives us the guidance to get there. the power of devotion and the attractiveness of it, the everything for Krishna. I've read that Prabhupada said that there was once there was disturbance in the Calcutta temple in the early days when they were just establishing it. One devotee was, the leader was acting in a way that was, the other devotees weren't being taken care of properly, because he had his concept of how he wanted to please Prabhupada. So the devotees were very upset, and when Prabhupada came there, he was confronted with the difficulties of the circumstance. So he heard from everyone, and then he made a practical managerial adjustment. But he said two things that really struck me, and I get this information from His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj's book. He said that, and it was beyond the understanding really of the devotees. But because of the devotees' love for Prabhupada, they followed as best they could. Prabhupada said, this movement is so important. And by that he was trying to convince them that although there are so many difficulties, the actual world is so much in need of spiritual knowledge, of spiritual practices, of something that's pure, that to help spread this movement, even though there are difficulties, it's so important, it's worth it. Despite the inconveniences, despite the troubles, yes, the troubles are there, but it's worth it because of the importance of the Krishna Consciousness movement. That sense, I'm not sure how strong it is nowadays, but Prabhupada was carrying that so strongly. And the second thing that he said was, in more private, to a lesser number of devotees, he said, my mood was always everything for Krishna. And this is my rewording of the other part, he said, and nothing for me. And I never complained. That's what he said. So those two things really struck me. How you can't do it unless you love, unless you're deep. You could say from now on, I'm everything for Krishna, nothing for me. Of course, we won't even dare say that, but not what to speak of not complaining. What would we do with our spare time? But Prabhupada said that. So that takes such a deep realization of the importance of love for Krishna and Mahaprabhu's mercy and what Prabhupada was doing to do that. In that sense, it takes one has to be so deep to understand that this is what life is about, human life is about. And that I'm so fortunate not only to be able to offer food to Krishna, but so fortunate to be able to offer some service when it's needed. What do you think? Huh?
It's difficult.
What do you mean when you say it's difficult? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, kind of like the ultimate, not reward without being selfish, but the ultimate, or your true nature is to understand that is no simple task, and it's not cheap.
So how does one feel when one's confronted with the disparity between, or the difference between what pure bhakti is and me? So one can either feel, I'll answer it for you, you can either feel quite discouraged or you can feel humble. That I'm fortunate to be able to make my little offerings as best I can. I know that not much. So if one takes a humble point of view for it, that really affects how one operates in the world and how one deals with the difficulties of the world, and especially deals with the other devotees. If one has a true humility. Now you can answer. And that's such an important point, rather than feeling discouraged when we see that it seems to be very far away. And that's the nature of bhakti, also to feel that I don't have any. But instead of feeling discouraged, one should feel fortunate and humble. And therefore we need a lot of kirtan also. It helps. And Shastra. Anyone else? Anyone have any questions? Or anyone want to respond to I mean, I didn't actually plan on doing this, but what could I do? And it's so interesting also, I found, when looking through this, this is the last thing that is going to occur before Mahaprabhu enters Vrindavan. And he's going to show the example of the result of this type of mood in Vrindavan. And it's going to be complete ecstasy. Anyone have any questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you for a wonderful class. I have a question that, as you said, that we have to be humble and we have to remind ourselves that we have to give best in our Krishna consciousness.
We have to give
Our best
in
Krishna consciousness. But this reminder is like, whenever I hear class, I'll be in association, I feel inspired for 2 to 3 days. My chanting goes...
That much? That's pretty good. I always found that it usually lasts as long as until we hear Sarira, Vidyaja, Vitanya, and then everything is gone.
How to be, be continuously, in that mood and keep giving our best?
Yeah, that's a good thing to discuss with the devotees. How the devotees, your friends amongst the devotees, how do they deal with this issue that it's hard to maintain in the power of material energy is very strong, very strong. So how to keep it up, how to always keep in the fire of Krishna consciousness. So what works best for you in that regard?
Listening to the class, hearing from the classes, like hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam.
Yeah, nice.
That keeps me inspired.
So how do you do that during the week, after the 2 or 3 days is finished?
Saturday and Sunday I try to be in association and try to hear, but apart from that, whenever I'm at home, I try to hear the lectures.
Yeah. So, anyone else have any suggestions on how to keep in Krishna consciousness during the week or during the weekends? Anyone else to say what works best for them? Yes.
We can write what we have heard and we can contemplate.
So writing what you've heard and then thinking about it.
Studying Srila Prabhupada's books.
Yeah. Thank you. What works for you? Don't worry, I won't call on you. How old are you now?
17.
When is your birthday?
September.
What month are we in again? July. September. 2 months you're going to be 18? How did that happen? Well, that's the thing. It just happens, right? And then suddenly you find yourself 18, and then suddenly you find yourself 80, if you're lucky. And then you think, well, what just happened? And Prabhupada he was telling me, because he was going to old age homes and dealing with palliative care people. And he said, you see these old people there, and this one was a bank manager, and this one was a corporate this, and this one was a doctor, and this one was a that. And it's just like a dream at this point. And they're just, shriveled old prunes, and, just sort of waiting. And some of them, though, spiritually religious-minded people, they're not in anxiety because they've developed faith in their life and trust. They know what's going to happen. Maybe they don't like it, but no one likes it. But they're not in anxiety because they've used their life for some depth, to develop depth. Anyone else? What works for them? Yes?
So the question is like...
No, you have to answer my question. I'd like to hear from the devotees what works for them best. You wanted to say something, I know. No? It's too, yeah. Yes?
I think in the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Narad Muni's example was that when he served the Mahabhagavatas, that's how he got the taste for chanting. So, serving senior devotees who are more forward in the spiritual journey than
So serving those who are more advanced.
because from them.
What happens if you don't think anyone's more advanced? It's a problem, but a big problem. It's called the Duryodhana syndrome. Yes, serving. Anyone else? Thank you. Anyone else want to say what works best for them? I'm going to wait it out. Anyone else? Trini, would you like to say what works best for you?
There's a kind of uncomfortable feeling that comes when you find your thinking is unaligned with Srila Prabhupada's thinking.
Or with your own values, your own highest values. That's a whole, yeah, go ahead.
And I find you have to stop and look at that. As soon as
Nice.
you recognize it, that's what's happening.
Nice. So one problem is when people don't have values. And the second problem is when you have them and you don't want to stop. When you're going against your own values.
Or when you have them but you can't actually apply yourself to them. You find yourself defeating
Your own values. Yeah. So one way to deal with that is you have low values, then you don't have any problems. But at least that you don't have that problem, but you have other problems. But we should hear and we should try our best. humbly try our best. That would be such a nice thing to do, actually. Maybe we could schedule one of these, just when the devotees get together and we have a session private session, we write, not publicly tell everyone, but write down our values, what we really value in life, what standards are meaningful to us. Very privately, not for everyone reading them to others, but and then see how we're doing. A self-assessment. And then what we could do to move forward, at least a little baby step forward. Anyone else like to say what works for them best? Vrindavadishwari Mataji.
What works for best for me?
Yeah,
Yeah, prasad distribution, hearing, reading, classes like that.
so you try to get as much in as, and the deities. So feeding the deities, feeding the devotees, and giving classes and hearing. How many groups do you have every day?
At least one.
Yeah. Sadhu Baba. And it's also, excuse me, but at one stage of life it's one thing, and another stage of life it's another. When you have little children, it's different. Different stages of life have different requirements for us. And how to deal with each stage of life in a practical, because you have to be practical too. So how to deal with each stage of life in a practical way that moves you forward in Krishna consciousness, or at least doesn't degrade your Krishna consciousness. So that, to have elders really helps, who've been through it already and can tell us what worked, help us what worked for them, and put it in perspective. Yes.
I think the example is here, keep the fire burning. So putting if you want to do seva is there, then deity worship, and following Acharya step by step.
And service. What service is your favorite?
Serving the devotees. And now you have given me the translation.
Yeah, because you have that kind of huge intelligence. And to associate with like-minded devotees is really helpful. People who are in a similar situation than us, than we're in, and someone to complain to who'll understand us. Okay, Braj Mohan, how do you remain? What's the best you do?
I think reading a little bit every day is helpful.
You think? Is reading a little every day helpful for you? Do you like to give class also? No? But do you get asked to give class? Yeah. What do you do when you're asked to give class but you don't like to give class?
Usually I don't give class.
Make an excuse or something. Oh, I have a headache today.
We already asked him for wisdom truth.
Huh? We already. And what did he say? Oh, I have a headache.
He told me I don't like giving classes.
Straightforward Brahmin boy. Is it like you don't like before you're giving it, after or during?
Before.
Yeah, but when you're giving it, it's all right? Okay. What inspires you most in Krishna consciousness?
I think other devotees, senior devotees,
You mean associating with them? Or
and hearing about them, what they
yeah. Anyone else? Why not?
In many ways, it's all of it, of course, that's our process, but I think also for me, it's, it's not something we can just do, attaining that. It was really heavy, what Prabhupada said for me, it kind of struck my heart, that no ulterior motive.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And I was thinking
Well,
that-
actually, if you're under the shelter of the material energy, it's impossible. Actually, only when you're in the platform of Bhava Bhakti, when the descent into the heart of Ladini Sambit comes, then it's possible.
But, and I was thinking that's, exactly, I was thinking that's impossible. I can't imagine going practically a moment without an ulterior motive. But,
So how do you deal with that?
I think by associating, I have hope that by associating with and hearing from and serving and hopefully pleasing those who are much closer to that platform, that Krishna, if they are pleased, then maybe Krishna will also be pleased and help me get there. And, that comes also with following the process, because ultimately, why are they giving their life to helping us? Is with the hope that we will follow the process. So that, over time, I guess, the realization that that's actually the best service we can offer them is to actually follow the process they've given their life to, and trying to assist them in that mission. And that if they are pleased, then Krishna will be pleased by their pleasure and help us. Help it. And not just that, and I think Mataji and I were discussing this the other day, that at some point in your life, your prayer is, Krishna, please just make me chant with faith and make me chant with love and give me bhakti. And that has to mature to actually desiring the desire, to actually, not the desire for it to just happen, but the desire to have the desire to then put in the effort. And now that so many of those devotees that inspire me personally are getting older, they're leaving this world, and the realization that the opportunity to associate with them and serve them in this world was a blessing, but if I would like to have that association and service eternally, I have to put in the work. And so, I think that is the motivation. It's an ulterior motive still, but the ulterior motive is a little better than the selfish one, I guess. It's getting a little better.
I would say it's more humble also. What do you think, Mr. Vilayadhar Prabhu?
For me, it is reading and reflecting, and praying, begging for when I'm chanting.
You beg while you chant? You've turned from a CFO to a beggar. Okay, sorry, we kept. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Nitya Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. What works for you?
Just spontaneous association with devotees, like-minded devotees.